Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, and as John calls me, your existential Mr. Rogers, Robert Meyer Burnett, and I have not done this in a long time, but this is part 2 of questions from you in our great spoiler discussion about Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. I don't know what you guys got for me, but they better be good because I don't want to waste my time. You don't want to waste your time. We're going to have a good time no matter what. So let's see what you have to say. We got the fault in our Death Stars. I like that. Says, since Lewis isn't in Ant-Man 3, his absence would be totally worth it if he was in Avengers, the Kang Dynasty, and or Secret Wars instead. Look, you know what? It's just not an Ant-Man movie without Lewis recapping something. I would love to see that. I mean, I think everyone knows that Lewis is beloved in the MCU. I think they know that over at Marvel Central. So I don't think we've seen the last of our boy Lewis, or Louis, as the case may be. So I think you're right. I want to see him. You want to see him. We all want to see him come back because he's a hell of a storyteller. Nor Cambodge says, do you think the Kang in this film is the main one? Well, what does that mean, main one? I think that's, I mean, I guess it is a spoiler discussion. The 2 post-credit scenes show us other Kangs. No, you know what I think? I think that the Kang that rises to power is going to be a different Kang that has learned from these other Kangs. Or what is the plural of? I guess Kangs is the plural of Kang. So I don't necessarily think that. But how do you define the main Kang when you see the Council of Kangs? Which Kang is it? But I think this Kang met his demise because that's what Kangs do. But I think the new Kang, the new improved Kang, will be even more formidable than the Kang we've met in this film. That's what I think. Derek Large says, my wife and I were very disappointed. She entered the MCU through Ant-Man and said that it feels like Marvel is just making fun of their own fans at this point. Look, as I was saying today on the John Campea Show, I really believe that I've always thought, this is the Rob Burnett theory of great comic book movies. We want to believe that superheroes, when we're watching superhero movies, might, in the back of our imaginations, exist in our world. So when we see superhero movies, we kind of want to see them existing in our world. And the MCU is really good about that for the first part of its existence. And I think the problem that everyone's had with Phase 4, and this is just a theory, is that it's too far removed from our world. Even Black Widow, you know, it ends on the Flying Fortress was fine, but it had a tenuous connection to our world. Shang-Chi was in San Francisco, which was fine, but then it ends in Fantasyland, in some fantasy realm. And then even Wakanda Forever, you know, there was not a lot of it that took place in other places. There was some of it. But again, Wakanda's a fantasy realm. Talokan's a fantasy realm. Thor Love and Thunder took place in fantasy world. So I think a lot of what has happened with the Marvel Cinematic Universe is we don't believe that we're watching the heroes right outside our window. And if you go back, try this as an experiment. Go back and watch Iron Man 1, and you'll see, wow, this movie is taking place in the here and now. And when you get to Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, you're watching all of this craziness. And I'll tell you something, I don't think they even really do a very good job. They might as well have been on an alien planet. But shrinking down into the quantum realm, how do you breathe? I mean, there's all these questions, if you know anything about science, that they just kind of break any rules that might exist. And you're like, well, it's the quantum realm. And that sort of takes out, well, it took my ability to suspend my disbelief away. So perhaps that's what happened with your wife as well. I don't think she's wrong. Milo Murphy says, I think the best Phase 4 villain was Green Goblin. Well, you know, I think you might be right about that. But why? Because, you know, he's attached to the real world as far as he can be. And he also, we saw him from before, but Willem Dafoe is fantastic. But I do think that there's something to be said for that. And I think when you spin off into Fantasyland, people kind of tune out. And the great thing, if you watch Captain America Winter Soldier, which an argument could be made that's the best MCU movie, it takes place in the real world. Yeah, you've got Hydra and you've got the Triskelion and the helicarriers, the SHIELD helicarriers, but still action sequences take place on the streets in the middle of a city, and you believe it. And that's why those movies worked so well. And as they've moved off, I mean, I felt this way with Loki. I sort of was like, they've pushed the fantasy realm too far. And that's when I think stuff started to crumble. Amin says, I hated how the trailers showed the last moment in the big fight at the end. Sure, it wasn't really spoilers per se, but it was the climax of the film. Bro, I'm with you. You know, I mean, you got Scott Lang drowning in a sea of Scott Langs and all that stuff. And I think they showed too much, to be honest. But you're right. I mean, once you've seen all the imagery or some of the imagery that happens at the end of the movie, you kind of feel cheated because you've already seen that imagery and you want to wait to see some of the craziness within the context of the movie. So I think you're not wrong at all. Derek Large is back. For an unstoppable multidimensional Avengers killer, Kang was too easily killed off. I have no worries that the Avengers will be able to beat him. You know what? I love Jonathan Majors as Kang, but you're not wrong. He was killed off, and I think Kang should be more formidable. The end of that movie should have ended with him escaping on some really big apocalyptic note. I mean, I know they have the Council of Kangs in the post-credit scene, but still, within the movie, he got beat. And once you've defeated one version of a villain, he's not as formidable. I mean, Thanos was formidable. He wasn't defeated. And then he's like, you know what? If you're going to do something, you got to do it yourself. He grabs the gauntlet, off to the races. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Darth the Pooh says, some are suggesting in the end Scott is in a different universe. Some hints are all the purple pedestrian reactions and different graffiti. Maybe Rob's idea they're already in the multiverse is true. Well, everything I say is true. And I think it's probably beneficial if you remember what your old Bob says, that you could be in any universe. But no, in all seriousness, I kind of think that's what's happening. And they've given us clues that we've been watching different universes. And that's why it's called the Multiverse Saga. The Eternals, I mean, yeah, they mention the Avengers and things like that because we know that throughout the different universes there are different things, but it wouldn't surprise me one bit if that were the case. That's really interesting. I wasn't paying that close attention at the end when Scott Lang's out, but that seems to be quite credible. I'm going to have to go back and watch it again. Fangblaze71 says trailers gave away too much, in my opinion. I don't know if they gave away the plot, but I think they certainly showed a lot of the imagery that they should have saved for the experience of seeing it within the body of the film. Totally agree with you. 100%. You're absolutely right. D Duval 59 with the $20 super chat. D Duval, thank you for your support. Like the old Bartles and James wine cooler commercial. Thank you for your support. We appreciate that here. What a garbage movie. The writing was all over the place, and I felt like nothing got resolved. And what a waste of Bill Murray and MODOK down there with Thor 2 and Iron Man 2 for me. Well, I got to say, I don't necessarily think you're wrong. I thought this movie was, quite frankly, the way I like to put it, full of gobbledygook. And the reason being is they were dazzling you. I just don't think Jeff Loveness is a very good writer. And I'm with you. I think that, you know, for whatever reason, they bring these writers in, and they're not Marcus and McFeely that wrote the Captain America movies and the Avengers movies, because I was not made to believe. I didn't believe in Ant-Man and the Wasp. I didn't believe in Quantumania. I didn't feel mania at all. I didn't feel very quantum, to be honest. The most quantum I felt was a Quantum of Solace, and that's a whole different movie and a whole different franchise. So I am right there with you. Right there with you. Rock Solid says, I feel like we're in the same spot that we were in at the end of Loki. Kang dies and a bigger threat is coming. Rock solid. I think that is a rock solid assessment. I agree with you. I mean, where is the continuing threat there? I really don't know. Everybody kind of came out of the quantum realm. They reset everything, and it's sort of hunky-dory. I agree. I mean, something should have happened in the quantum realm. Maybe it was cut off, or, something. But I feel the same way. I think it was kind of treading water. I don't really know what was accomplished by this movie. Okay, they vanquished a Kang, and then we see a council of Kangs, and then a Kang that's in the Roaring 20s, I guess. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I don't know. John says, what's the deal with the ending? That Baskin-Robbins guy charged him for the coffee, but in the beginning of the movie, it was free. A new timeline. I think, you know what, that makes sense. Like, I've been saying this for a long time, that all these characters are scattered. That's why there's no Avengers team, because we're not seeing, nothing we've seen is in the same timeline. I think, and they're going to make that a big reveal, and we're all going to be supposed to go, but the fact is, I've been saying this for the better part of the last year. So I think that's probably right. You know what? Now I hate to say it, but now I'm going to go see this movie again because of all of you. You've made me want to just I want to go see this movie again because I want to watch the end again. How crazy is that? And the problem is I'll probably do it. I'll probably do it and be like, oh, right. Could be true. That's a really good indicator. You had to pay for his coffee. Thank you, Spider-Man. Mr. Hank Dunn says, overall, the movie was meh, but this is the most pro-socialism movie ever, so it gets a pass. P.S. Got my tickets for Captain Marvel, Fury of the Gods. I see what you did there. Yeah, socialism hasn't really worked. The 20th century is full of failed attempts. No matter how many times people say, well, they just didn't do it right. No, they did. It just doesn't work because people want to have things for their own and excel. So, yeah, I mean, again, it is kind of pro-socialism, but, ants are kind of socialistic. So they built a big socialistic society. I like evolved ants. I would kind of hang out with them. I wish we had them on this planet. Actually, you know what? You should read a great Ray Bradbury story called The Sound of Thunder. Apropos of nothing. Don't go watch the Peter Hyams movie. Just read the short story. You'll like it. The Everything Entertainment says, my biggest gripe was the half-hearted attempt at a redemption arc for MODOK. It felt so out of place. Probably bottom 3 MCU for me. Look, I thought MODOK was kind of a goof anyway. I mean, Darren Cross, is that his name? Becomes MODOK. I mean, I didn't dig it. I don't know. Did I make fun of people? Was that ableist of me to say that? I don't know. I didn't like MODOK. I thought, like you said, oh, I want you to turn good and sacrifice yourself in the process. Why? Why would he do that? He fought on a train in Cassie's bedroom. What, I'm going to redeem myself for that battle I had with your dad? I didn't dig it. I think you're right. It felt half-assed. It felt like it was tacked in like someone said, well, we have to have some kind of a redemption arc for somebody, so let's give it to MODOK. Didn't love it. Jordan McIntyre says, I've always been critical of Marvel's humor at inappropriate times. It has got a lot worse in Phase 4. The movies are becoming less believable. You know what? Jordan, you're absolutely right. And I put that squarely down to the writing. The Marvel movies, people talked about the humor, but it felt like, look, when you're in difficult situations, people resort to what's called gallows humor sometimes. They'll make dark, sardonic jokes in the face of certain death. And that makes sense. But in this movie, it felt really forced, like, let's make a funny joke. I mean, I didn't dig it. It didn't feel organic. And that was another thing. When you go into such a fantasy, crazy realm, you have to then you have to ground me in my humanity in this. And I thought that it didn't do that. And I felt the same thing kind of happened with Loki. It was just too much. the time variance authority and all the stuff that you saw and the crazy Terry Gilliam Brazil stuff, it's so far removed from, say, Captain America, the Winter Soldier, and even fighting Thanos or even fighting Ultron in Sokovia. It's just Phase 4 has been too, I hate to say it, but comic booky? Didn't dig it. Never lose your nerd. Well, let me tell you, I'm an old fuck, and I haven't lost my nerd yet. So, geez, it's amazing. So I promise I won't lose mine if you don't lose yours. I'm not an Ant-Man fan, and I had no expectations for this movie, but I actually liked it, and I was very entertained. Definitely not top tier, but it was fun. Hey, you know what? Never lose your nerd. You've clearly never lost your nerd because you dug this movie, and why not? I mean, I think this movie is perfectly acceptable. You know, it really requires, like, I would never criticize anybody for liking something. To like things is good. It depends what it is you're looking for. So if you're looking for a diversion or some great entertainment, I thought this movie was entertaining, but to me, I was looking at it more. It was hard for me to put aside how entertained I was by certain aspects of the movie with the larger meta narrative they're telling. And I thought servicing that meta narrative was not working for me. And I also thought I had a hard time. I'm like, why should I care? And that was where I was. But I think I can totally understand why you were entertained. I think it's good. Never lose your nerd. Never lose your nerd. Bruce Lum with the $20 super chat. Bruce, my man. Hi, John and crew. Any idea how Cassie could quickly open up a portal back to an exact location in the quantum realm at the end of the movie while only creating a telescopic view at the beginning? Fast learner. Okay. I'm kind of tired, and this has nothing to do with my misogynistic sexism. I'm going to say this. Why is it that every teenage girl that we meet in the Marvel Universe is a brilliant scientist? Now, I'm not saying that can't happen, but Riri Williams, Wakanda Forever. Now we have Cassie here. We have two teenage girls in consecutive movies who are scientific geniuses. I don't think I've ever met a scientific genius teenage girl in my life, much less two in consecutive movies. I understand it's the Marvel Universe, but here's the problem. Again, they're using this as a crutch. And I have no problem with genius scientific, whether males, females, whatever, but make me believe. And her powers are I don't believe that she would struggle. If you told me that she could make a black hole in her bedroom closet, I'd be like, okay, well, why shouldn't she be able to? I mean, where did she learn all of this? Obviously, she's been learning from Hank. I get it. But still, she's still a kid. So, again, that's where verisimilitude fails me. And I think you're not wrong. Edward says, I quite enjoyed the movie. Then again, I think Phase 4 was the best phase, so my imagination was really sparked. It felt like Star Wars times Marvel. Well, you know what? I don't think you're wrong. And I think that's something else. I mean, if you thought Phase 4 was your favorite, clearly you're more you dig more of that fantasy element, and that's the other side of the equation. And if you're a fan of all that, then I think this phase was very satisfying. I mean, I'm more of I like it grounded more in reality, but more of if you're more of a fantasy fan, makes perfect sense to me. And there's a lot of that in Phase 4, so there's no reason why you shouldn't love it. I just am looking for something slightly different from the MCU, and it's moving over to a place that I think is too much. But maybe that's because I'm old and I'm going to die soon. So what do I know? Tristan says, I really wish Scott and Hope got stuck in the quantum realm. It would have made the ending way better, and they could help rebuild it. Cassie could take on the mantle of Ant-Man or Ant-Woman while they were gone as well. You know what? I wouldn't have objected to that. I think it would have been interesting when they emerge. They would have a big part to play, I would imagine. I mean, you know, what do you do with a bunch of evolved ants? You could create, who knows what you create. Could be interesting. So I don't think you're wrong. I like that idea. Kyle Schneider says, the humor in the MCU movies has never been worse. I hated a lot of the jokes in this. The one about having needs is especially out of place and forced. I agree. I mean, first of all, people just wouldn't talk like that when you're in the quantum realm. And I agree. I think it was just too much. They feel like they have to put the jokes in there. And I don't disagree with you. CJ Rebirth says, I buy Kang as a villain, especially in that last fight with Scott, shooting his energy blasts and when Janet saw his conquering memories. Yeah, I mean, that was cool. I really liked all that stuff, and I believe him as a villain, but then, he does get vanquished. And I think by having him vanquished, something was sort of removed in a way. And I don't think that you're wrong. So how do we reconcile this? I'm not sure, but I wanted something different from that climax, something that led us into something like where it's like the Buffy episode, the musical episode, Once More with Feeling. Where do we go from here? The battle's won, or the battle's done, and we kind of won. So we'll shed our victory tear, but tell us, where do we go from here? I don't know where they go from there. I guess we're going to find out if we keep watching. Movies 32, 33, 34, and 35. Absolutely. Amin is back. Like most people, I thought MODOK was just dumb. Basically, Jar Jar Binks. But admittedly, I thought the gooey character who wanted holes was quite funny. Also loved it when Baskin and Robbins Scott showed up. Yeah, I mean, that was clever. I did like Baskin and Robbins Scott. I thought that was good. But yeah, there was stuff that I thought was funny, like the guy where the holes and all that. That was kind of fun. But it was, again, all over the place. I didn't quite understand what was the tone that they were going for in this movie. But you know what? There's a tone that we're going for on this show, and that tone is sponsored by our friends at Fume and our favorite tuxedo. This tuxedo company, it's great, man. You can order a tuxedo, and they'll send it to you. You can wear it and send it back. It's pretty dope. I'm going to come to work in a white tuxedo and pretend I'm James Bond soon.
Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of this video, Fume. Be smart. Don't start. Kick the habit. Put it out before it puts you out. All phrases we've heard 100 times, and yet we still continue to have bad habits. Today's sponsor, Fume, is on a mission to accelerate humanity's breakup from the bad habits that consume far too many of us. Fume is a natural diffusive device that uses plants and behavioral science to help you trade out your negative habit for a positive one. You see, Fume is not a vape. It's a non-electronic device designed to transform your negative habits. Because instead of pods filled with potentially harmful chemicals like a vape, Fume uses cores infused with plants like peppermint and cinnamon for delicious natural flavors. And Fume's new version 2 model is snappy and tactile. With an adjustable airflow dial and a magnetic end cap, your fingers will always have something to do. The device itself is really attractive, and once I popped in the core and took my first inhale of it, it tasted fantastic. Guys, the easiest way to stop a bad habit is to switch to a positive one, and Fume is designed to perfectly do just that. So head over to tryfume.com and use the promo code Campea to save 10% off when you get the Journey Pack today. The Journey Pack comes with 3 unique flavors and the new version 2 Fume to help kickstart your positive habits. That's tryfume, tryfum.com, and use the code Campea to save an additional 10% off your order today. Hey guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, the Black Tux. It's time we had the talk. You know the one I'm talking about, the one that ends in the 3-letter word. I'm talking about a tux. And when you need a tux, the best place to go to get one is the Black Tux. The Black Tux makes it super easy to get an on-trend, top-quality, guaranteed to fit tux without ever needing to leave your house. So here's how it works. Take the Black Tux fit quiz, pick the style you want to wear, and boom, your tux is delivered to your door 10 days before the day you need it. That's plenty of time to try it on and make sure it wears you well. And hey, if the fit's not quite right, say hello to the Black Tux Fit Guarantee. Order a better size within a day or two of receiving the less than great fitting one, and they'll send another one right away at no extra cost. Their expert fit specialist will help you find the perfect style tux or suit and make sure it fits just right. Listen, I've been dubious in the past about online sites or apps that say they can get your measurements, but the fit quiz with the Black Tux works great. And man, I wish I'd had these guys for so many events I've attended over the years. So rent or buy, the Black Tux is the best place to go when you need a tuxedo for a wedding or a special night. And right now, when you go to thebblacktux.com/Campea and use the code Campea, you'll save $20 off your order. That's THEBLACKTUX.com/Campea, code Campea to save $20.
Sponsors, Fume and the Black Tux. You know, they got many colored tuxes. I could dress like all different kinds of James Bonds. But remember, when you use our sponsors, you're supporting us and helping us deliver the great content to you. And that Fume has some great flavors. I kind of want to try that. Remember to use the Campea codes when you support us by going to our sponsors. So thanks for that. What is next? You know, by the way, Taylor Gonzalez on there on the switcher.
What
and
up?
Ray Ora, while he said he declined to
Ray's
participate
camera's on.
in this particular show. What's going on? What's happening? Stuff's happening. It's crazy. It's all out there. Anyway, you know, I just defer to Slade Wilson, Deathstroke the Terminator right here. So we'll see what Taylor brings me or not. Stephen Wolf with the $20 super chat. Thank you, Stephen. Very nice of you. Hi, John. The movie was terrible. They needed a page one rewrite on this one. Let's start with the fact that the supporting cast like Michael Pena were sorely missed and could have played a part in the story. I agree. I mean, I understand that Peyton Reed talked about doing an Avengers level movie and he needed that kind of thing and they needed to introduce Kang. But I really felt that I've really liked the other two Ant-Man movies quite a bit. Kind of like I like both Guardians of the Galaxy movies. Some people said they didn't like two as much, but I like the Ant-Man movies sort of equally. And I get where they were going with all this. The quantum realm was glimpsed in the first movie. I get all that. But this storyline felt, I don't know, it felt like, okay, all this, it just wasn't the story I wanted to hear. And it would have been really interesting. I'm still waiting to see how does the world deal with the fact that they were snapped away for 5 years. Like, what does that mean? And I'm not saying they have to go into that's what this movie was about, but it was Scott Lang who, like, how does the world know what happened? Did the Avengers give a press conference? Like, how is the world cool with this? If I knew that there was a being out there that could snap me away out of existence for 5 years and I came back, I'd be freaked out for the rest of my life. And everyone's like, let's go get some ice cream. I mean, I don't know. I need more. And I think you're right. We just needed more. Sonny D says, one of the problems I have with the MCU right now is each film introducing world-ending stakes that gets tied up nicely by the end of the film. I feel like the universe is disconnected because of this, dude. Or maybe not dude, because your name is Sonny D. I am right there with you. I feel that there's no connection between all these movies. And if they're trying to make a connection, if Kang is truly this multiversal villain, why hasn't he been the overarching villain in all of these movies? We should have been seeing Kang variants throughout time. And I mean, maybe we are and we just don't know it yet. And they're going to show us that because Kang takes on different guises in the comics. So maybe that's part of it. But I do feel that the Marvel Cinematic Universe it's become disconnected with itself. And I'm totally with you in that assessment. I just don't know where we're supposed to be or what we're supposed to think at this point. I don't feel that there's any forward narrative momentum for the universe as a whole. Maybe there will be at some point, but I'm kind of waiting for it. I didn't feel that with Phase 4. And with Quantumania, I don't know what's next. I don't even have an indication of what's next, other than the fact that there's a whole lot of Kangs out there and in different time periods too. So what am I supposed to make of this? Don't know. Dominic Suma says Ant-Man 3 the end specifically reminded me of the rise of Skywalker in the worst way. Huge conveniences, and the end where everyone magically shows up. Listen, I think you're not wrong here. And I think that was, again, one of the problems with, I think it's kind of one of the problems with Thor Love and Thunder, Wakanda Forever, and this movie. It just feels like whoever needs to show up at the end shows up at the end. Let me talk MODOK into being a good guy. Let's have this highly evolved ant civilization. Whatever we need will be there. And there's no, I didn't feel that way in the first three phases, not to belabor the point, but when you got to the end of Winter Soldier, you didn't feel like everything was resolved. It's not like, Hydra's defeated and all the rot that's in our government's been gone. No, you didn't feel that way. A battle was won, but the war was not. And I just don't know where we are here. So, yeah. Devin Pangrecker says, if this Kang survived, chances of Scott dying by the end of Secret Wars skyrocketed. He's going to burn him out of time. Well, maybe, but I would think that again, if he survived, but how many Kangs are there, and how are those variants? How does it all play? See, also, I feel that they haven't done enough to explain this to the non-comic book audience. Like when we see the Council of Kangs, everyone knows, that's like a panel right out of a comic. But it's like, what does the rest of the audience think? It's very weird. They haven't set it up enough, and they're not paying it off enough. And even though I've read the comics and know, I still find it frustrating. So, yeah, I agree with you. Stephen Wolf comes back with another $20 super chat. Stephen, you are an amazing guy. Bill Murray played no purpose in the plot of the movie, and it was a complete waste. The quantum realm, better known as the volume, was awful. There's a part where Scott and Cassie are running away while the freedom fighters, this is one of two, are being attacked. It looks like they're running in a circle. This was a horrible movie, very upsetting. And they are basically running in a circle because they have to stay on the volume stage. Look, I agree with you. I also think this idea to make the quantum realm, there was nothing recognizable. To me, if there was they weren't outside shooting on any kind of real landscape that then they would add something to the background, like add a castle in the distance or add something in the distance. I felt like I was on a green screen soundstage the whole time, and it was bothersome. And that's part of the problem. I didn't believe what I was watching. I didn't believe the quantum realm was a real place. And I don't like that. I don't like not believing in my fantasy realms. I believed in Middle Earth. I believed in Minas Tirith, the White City. I believed in Rohan. What are you going to do? I don't know. Not like it. Devin Pangrekar says, did you hear about the original ending that they reshot like a month ago? Kang was supposed to escape the quantum realm, and Hope and Scott would have been trapped. Well, that I would have liked that ending far more than the ending that we got, because that would have been like exciting and new. That's what I would have liked, and it would have been better to get that. Come aboard, we're expecting you. That's the Love Boat theme song. I know I'm old, but I do think that it would have been better if Kang had escaped and Scott and Hope were in the quantum realm. That would have ended the movie on a note like, well, what's going to happen? Instead, unless the theory is correct that one of our viewers said earlier, that Scott Lang came back into a new universe, that would be interesting. But then what's different about that universe? What does that mean exactly? And if they don't tell the audience that, we can't go, we just have to guess. I don't know. Not digging it. Jamie Rell says, I'm confused about multiverse versus timeline. Which one is bigger? The multiverse is described as universes stacked up. The timeline is like a straight tree with branches being made if a timeline is broken. Okay, here's the thing. A universe, like our universe, is astonishingly large. Now imagine it's infinitely large. Now, but our timeline that we're living on, we live in a timeline. Think about your life from beginning to end. Your timeline exists in a much larger universe. Now, let's say you were able to travel through time and you were to create timelines that branched off of your main timeline or branched back to your main timeline. They might all exist within the same universe because the timeline only exists in you're not going to a new universe, but there are universes stacked on top of universes, each with timelines in them. So hopefully that will explain that universes are much different than timelines are, because timelines don't mean you go to another universe. You're in a different timeline within the same universe. That's how I'd explain it. Emilio Morales. Hi, John and Rob. Hey, it's me. My first time donating. Well, I hope it didn't hurt. Just wanted to support the after show. My wife and I were disappointed with the film. Emilio, well, first of all, thank you for supporting the channel. That means a lot. And I'm sorry that you and your wife were disappointed in the film. That's kind of a bummer. But I understand why. I mean, I think people wanted something more. And I do think the movie was off-putting. You can't get into it. It doesn't come inside your heart and soul like other movies do. Like, say, Terrifier 2 did.
Yeah.
See, that was for Taylor back there. I believed Terrifier 2 more than I believe Quantumania. What does that say about me? I don't know. But I'm with you and your wife, and thanks for supporting the channel. Very much appreciated. Levi R says, really beaten by ants. He killed a Thor in a different timeline, but got beat by Ant-Man. Doesn't make sense to me, and it makes Kang seem weak. I know when he comes on and goes, "You're an Avenger. Have I killed you before?" You know, all that. Like, come on, man. And when you have a villain, even if he has there's a whole council of him. If he's defeated once, he can be defeated again. I call it the Return of the Jedi syndrome. Once you've blown up one Death Star, you could blow up another Death Star. So when you see a new Death Star show up, even if it's bigger and not finished, it's like, yeah, we blew up one of those already. So how hard can it really be to blow up another one? That's always problematic, and that's what they did. Now Kang suffers from Return of the Jedi syndrome, which is not the greatest thing in the world. So, King Daddy Goat says, Avengers level movie, what a joke. Maybe next time. Yeah, I mean, they kind of set us up to say that, and it was just, you knew that they were going to defeat Kang. I never believed. Kang was great. Jonathan Majors is great, but I never believed they weren't going to defeat him. I always knew they were going to defeat him. And the only way they should have, especially with that character, Kang should not have been defeated. Not in this movie. Because once you can defeat one Kang, I mean, maybe if the whole council shows up, but even the whole council, they'd be arguing amongst themselves. Probably split down political lines. You never know. How did Kangs vote? Have no idea. But I bet they wouldn't get together. They're going to be defeated too, no matter how many of them there are. Kang should have escaped. I think so. I think you're right. Not a threat. Joshua Mickle says, like the idea of Secret Wars Battle World will take place in the void from Loki season 1. A friend brought it up to me and I never thought about it. So what you're saying that you like the idea that Battle World will be in the void as opposed to how Hickman set it up in the second Secret Wars. Probably so. I mean, I can imagine, since they've already showed that in the End of Time, whatever that void is. But then again, I just think that, I mean, since we've already been there, is that formidable enough? I don't know. I mean, I think you might be right, though. It wouldn't surprise me if that's where we wound up. But I just can't imagine that the climax of Secret Wars is going to take place in some place that was introduced in Loki, the TV show. but it could. I don't know. We already got that. Fangblaze71 says, I don't think it's likely we get an Ant-Man 4, but I hope we do. I like Quantumania, but it doesn't feel like a good ending for the Ant-Man movies. I thought it was a completely atypical Ant-Man movie, and I understand the Quantum Realm was in the first movie, but I would much rather have got back to an Ant-Man movie, and I hope Ant-Man 4 takes place in the real world, and it brings it back to, people making giant Hello Kitty toys or something. I love that in the second movie, and I think you're right. I think it didn't feel like the other two movies at all, and what they tried to do, I appreciated it. I just didn't love it. I mean, this movie was totally in my wheelhouse, and none of it gelled for me, which I thought was surprising, because I wouldn't have thought that. Jamie Rell says, despite this movie being divisive, I just want to say I hope that Marvel doesn't get to the point where it divides us. At the end of the day, we all just want to watch a good movie. Jamie, I agree with you. And listen, I think Marvel has had a problem since Phase 4 and now going into Phase 5. And again, it's the same problem. Their movies are no longer grounded. And we find audiences, especially fans of the MCU, and I consider myself a big fan, I have a hard time caring. Like, why should I care? Because all of it seems like a bunch of gobbledygook to me. And I never felt that way about Marvel's Phases 1, 2, and 3. I even look, you go back and you watch Iron Man 2. It might not be everyone's cup of tea, but it's far more, I think, enjoyable than Quantumania was. As many problems as it might have. So, yeah. Connor on camera says, I'm calling it now. Seeing how Kang can alter timelines and realities, the only Avenger who can defeat him is Wanda. That will be her redemption, and she will die in the process for good. Well, I like that. I don't think Wanda should die, but because she's a mutant, and I'd like to see her interact with mutants. But, I mean, that's not a bad hypothesis. But, yeah, she could take on, they're both Nexus beings, so I wouldn't mind seeing that. But hard to say. Like the idea, though. Devin Lita says, going back to MODOK, the movie never elaborated on how Darren's body deformed. I know. I mean, it's just like, well, there he is. I mean, how do you go from being basically Yellow Jacket, sucked into the quantum realm, to being turned into MODOK? Like, did somebody do that to him? And if so, how long did it take? It was a little goofy. To be honest. I didn't like it very much. I wasn't into it. I don't know. I mean, I thought it was cool that he was MODOK, but they should have had like some MODOK flashback and given us, and that, you know what? They could have had Lewis. How did he become MODOK? And then he told the story. I don't know how that would have worked, but it would have been fun. What can I say? Let's see. Josh Hendley says, I liked it overall, but I never truly believed that Ant-Man could beat Kang, despite Ant-Man beating Kang in the movie. I know. I didn't either. I mean, it's Kang. With all these powers he has and the Council of Kang, how do you defeat him anyway? Wouldn't he have already seen the outcome of the battle if he wanted to? And that would have been the whole thing. I mean, it was sort of strange, and it was also too conventional that he was able to beat Kang the way he beat him. And that, yep, okay, Dad, let's go back home. I figured it out. Yeah, it was kind of an anticlimax. I don't like anticlimaxes. I like climaxes. Good, long climaxes that make sense to me. That's what I like. Isaac Meckler says, I really missed Michael Pena, David Dastmalchian, and T.I. I was thinking of them almost the whole movie. Well, yeah, because they're the secondary characters. They're the team. They're Scott Lang's team. They back him up. I mean, it's so weird to me that they didn't get that team back, because they're an integral part of that franchise. It's so weird. I think they thought, like, okay, we're going to replace, they were kind of the step family, And now we have Hank Pym, and we've got Hope Van Dyne, and we've got Scott Lang, and we've got Cassie, and we got Michelle Pfeiffer. We got Catwoman back. I mean, that was like the family. I think that was the thinking, but it should have at least opened with the characters that we know. Where are they at now post Endgame? I was kind of bummed out. I agree with you. It should have been there. It was a big part of that film. I don't know why they weren't in the movie. I'm sure they didn't know why they weren't in the movie either, and they're pissed about it just like we are. It's kind of a bummer. Devin Lita says, response to WJH per Salvatore. Wait, response to WJH per Salvatore. Oh, right. Try and relax your holes and your shoulders. A good line, to be sure. I always try and relax my holes. It's something I do on a daily basis. Not too much because you might make a mess, but you never know.
Oh, boy.
You never know what you're going to get in these chats, do you? Nick G says, hey, John, huge fan. Yesterday, you guys were comparing Ant-Man to Thor, Love and Thunder. Ant-Man and Thor are on different tiers for heroes, though, right? Well, yeah, I mean, Thor's a god. Ant-Man's just a dude in a suit. So they're on, but I think the comparisons between Thor, Love and Thunder, the movie, and Quantumania, and I think both of them have the same problem. They don't have any grounding. It's so silly to say this about Thor and Ant-Man, an Asgardian god, and Ant-Man, a man in a quantum suit that can shrink and get bigger. That said, both of those movies, I think, suffer from the same problem in that they all took place in these crazy, weird fantasy worlds that don't feel like what. I'll tell you something. Go with me on this. When I first started watching the MCU, I knew that they planned on eventually making an Avengers movie. So I knew they were going to make Iron Man. So you had Iron Man 1 and 2, then you had Thor, and then Captain America, the First Avenger. And I was like, how are they gonna get us to believe that Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor exist in the same world? How am I going to buy into Thor? How am I going to believe in him with Asgard and all these fantasy realms? Well, they made you believe because of his interactions on Earth. When you see Thor come to Earth, he forces you to believe in the fantasy realm, and there's that connection there, and it works. I think with Love and Thunder and with Quantumania, it's too far removed. Quantumania is like watching your Alice in Wonderland, and it was too far-fetched. And I'm looking at this stuff going, this is only stuff that can exist in a comic book. And what was so great, again, about the Marvel Cinematic Universe is it brought comic book notions literally down to Earth. And when Earth doesn't exist and you're spinning off into fantasy oblivion, you kind of lose interest. And I think that's what's happened with Phase 4 and Phase 5, to be honest. Motassim says, I don't care what anyone says. I love Love and Thunder. Hey, Motassim, you are Motassim after all. You can be as awesome as you want. And if you love Love and Thunder, you should. It made over $700 million. A lot of people liked Love and Thunder, and I get why they did. So never apologize for what you love. Don't let anyone sway your opinion unless your opinion is wrong. In the case of Love and Thunder, it is. But if you love Love and Thunder, don't let anyone sway your opinion of that. Love it fiercely with all of your heart. Charlie Masters says, it's crazy to me that Ant-Man is on a best-selling book tour, yet Falcon can't get a loan. There seems to be no communication between projects at all. You know what, Charlie? That's a great point. Again, the only way, so Ant-Man writes a book. Did everyone learn about Thanos' snap from Ant-Man? And you're right. What, Falcon's no hero? I mean, I understand what they were doing, but you're absolutely right that the Avengers, no matter who they are, they should be celebrated the world over. And for the Falcon not to be able to get a loan after saving the world, I mean, wouldn't somebody just reward them with free stuff because of what they had done? But I think you've just identified a real problem with the modern MCU, is that it doesn't feel cohesive. How does Ant-Man get to write a book, but Falcon, who, and I understand part of that is he's a soldier, and they're making the point that our soldiers are frequently forgotten by our own country, the very country they fight for, and it's I totally get it, and you're not wrong, and it's a great point to make. King Daddy Goat says they're living off past success, no new execution. Look, I agree. And I think, look, it's a tough act to follow, man. How do you follow up 23 amazing movies for the most part and that have a average gross of $1 billion? That's $23 billion for all 23 of those movies. How do you follow that up? I mean, I know they're leaning more heavily into the comic books, but I'm beginning to think that maybe they should have introduced the mutants, and this next phase should have been all about mutants, and then they did the quantum realm and the multiverse and all that, but no one asked me. So they should have. I would have straightened about. Because you know what? I could have read those scripts and made them better. Red One Real Talk. John, which MODOK would you take? MODOK from Quantumania or the Hulu series? Oh, my God. Probably, I'll take the one from the movie because the Hulu series MODOK, that was with Patton Oswalt, was even more insufferable. So I'm gonna go with Darren Cross. Got to go with him. Yeah. Brad TV says, is Maddock now the strongest Avenger? Who is Maddock?
I think it's supposed to be MODOK.
Is MODOK now the strongest Avenger? Well, there is no more MODOK, right? Or is there? And if he is around, maybe he would be. Maybe MODOK would be the strongest Avenger. I don't know. But are there any Avengers? We still don't know. Who's on the Avengers? I honestly, I don't say that facetiously. You know, I guess, I mean, Ant-Man's still an Avenger, but who leads the team? Where is the team? Their headquarters was destroyed. Did somebody rebuild it? I don't know. What's up with that? Hard to say. Mike Farino says the entire point at the end of Loki was that the killing of He Who Remains changes the timeline, both past and present. The Kangs did not exist before the events of Loki. Well, I love that idea. I hope that's true. That wasn't necessarily apparent to me. So when you see all the branching timelines, that's where the Council of Kangs came from. I love that idea. I guess that might have been self-evident. I hope that's true. So what happens when our Kang in this movie dies? Does that create more variants? What does that do? I mean, I think they needed to get into this and explain more of it. I guess Loki, the series, will get more into that, the season 2. But maybe it won't. I don't know. Andrew Rice says the CGI was rushed, like noticeably. Oh, I agree. I mean, there was so much CGI in this. The problem is they don't have enough. We know there's an actual shortage of CGI houses and personnel to create this stuff. And once you get into the quantum realm, every shot's an effect shot. Every shot. And so how do you deal with that? It's a lot of work. So I agree. Like, why put yourself in that position? Why not shoot some practical sets? Shoot outside. I guess nothing outside looks like the quantum realm, so I understand that. But even so, it was rough. I mean, it was rough. I didn't believe the quantum realm. I wanted to believe in it. I didn't believe in it. I don't know. It bummed me out. Empire Fan 1980 says, hey, John, I saw Ant-Man and yuck. But the funny part was when Nicole Kidman's AMC ad came on, the theater stood up and saluted her. Well, you know what? I wouldn't care what movie played. If that happened in my theater, I would be okay. I'd be like, that was worth it. That'd be worth it. Silently, if the audience just got up and saluted her, that'd be the greatest thing ever. And by the way, we should take full credit for this show for perpetuating everyone's knowledge of the AMC ad. If it wasn't for us, no one would know about it. Come on. You know that's true. Bert Bert says Bill Murray was there because Janet had needs. Well, yeah, and he also had a boat. We're on a boat, a space boat, a quantum boat, as it were, dressed like a boat captain as he was. But yeah, they needed that. But I don't have anything after that. But I mean, Janet does have needs. So does Bob. Ben Donnelly says, I enjoyed the hell out of this movie. The high-tech ants were peak weird sci-fi cinema, honestly. Looking forward to the Council of Kangs. Well, yeah. I mean, and I think a lot of people did, you know, and that's great. I think it's great. Don't let me harsh your mellow. If you love the movie, you should absolutely love that movie. And I agree with you. The high-tech ants and the advanced civilization, that was all very cool. But again, how does that relate back to, it seems like that's a huge leap from the rest of the movie that we're watching. But it was fun. I didn't hate it, but I just wish I didn't believe it either. So, but it wasn't bad. Aaron McDonough says, can we talk about that scene at the end with Loki? I loved seeing him pop up in the post-credit scene. I also love the movie, and my God, the performances. Well, the acting is terrific. I mean, you've got Michael Douglas is an Academy Award-winning actor. Greed is good. And he watched Sharon Stone part her legs in Basic Instinct, and he didn't flinch. He's a great actor. So I would expect nothing less. And by the way, Basic Instinct, great film if you want to check that out. Michael Douglas delivers a great performance. And watch it. It's got a great soundtrack too. I've had it on the brain. I always do. I've always got Basic Instinct on the brain. Bring on the filthy. But no, I think the acting was really, really good. And it didn't surprise me. Again, it was the story and it was the whole milieu of the quantum realm. I just didn't buy it. I didn't believe. I wasn't like Fox Mulder. I didn't believe. Shadow Jester says he didn't lose to ants. The ants had 2000s tech through 1,000 years of time dilation, 3,000 centuries tech, but he was overwhelmed, but still beat an army that takes away his only advantage. Hope beats him later. Well, it's true. I don't think he lost to the ants. He lost to many different things. He shouldn't have lost. That's all we're saying, is that he shouldn't have lost. He knew better. And what can you do? I don't know what to say. But I just wish he didn't lose. I didn't want him to lose. Maximilian Literal says, I miss when Ant-Man and Marvel movies in general were on a smaller scale. This movie introduces so much, explains much of nothing, and has no stakes. Maximilian, I got to agree with you there. You're seeing all these things come flying at you from every direction. You know, you're seeing crazy quantum alien bartenders. You're seeing super sophisticated advanced civilizations from giant ants. You're seeing Krylar's boat and hearing about his realm, and all this stuff's coming at you. What does it all mean? Nothing. It's all gobbledygook. And this doesn't have a grounding. What I would love is a real world plot of some kind, whether it was a heist plot or something, and the quantum realm was a side story that was part of it that maybe they had to go to for a minute, and they were detained by Kang, and they couldn't get out, whatever, something quick. But the whole movie in the quantum realm, it wore out its welcome very, very fast for me. And I was surprised by that, but it wasn't unexpected. Reggie Phoenix says, with how the MCU is handling the multiverse, are you worried about how they will introduce mutants? I worry it might be a bit much after seeing Ant-Man 3. I don't know what they're going to do with the mutants. Every time they make a movie, they seem to get further and further and further away from what the mutants can be. And it kind of bums me out, truth be told. I don't know. I honestly don't know what they're going to do. But you're right. I mean, it's... when you have the quantum, I don't know. Are we going to see the Mojo-verse and Spiral? And are we going to go to Bishop's Future and Trevor Fitzroy and all that? I don't know, man. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what they're going to do. Do you know, Taylor?
I do not know. Are you doing okay? Do you need me to help take over reading questions, or you're doing good so far?
Oh yeah, dude. I'm. Can I just sleep for a minute? Hang on. Break. Oh wait, what? Yeah, I'm all bright-eyed, bushy-tailed.
All right.
Let's see. Anthony C says, I quite enjoyed it. MODOK didn't work for me. Bill Murray felt had no impact. Did Cassie give you vibes of Ellie in the Last of Us game? Kind of. Not often the primary villain gets to be cannon fodder. Yeah, I just, the more I think about this, as I answer these questions from all of you, and they're great questions, by the way, you guys have great questions. I like this movie less and less. Only because it didn't do it for me. I didn't believe. I wanted to Fox Mulder this, and I want to believe, but I couldn't. I couldn't believe in this. I didn't believe in it, which is a bummer. I want to believe. So I'm sorry, I don't. Mo Tossum is back. Sylvie made the timelines universes accessible to one another when before each was isolated and unable to go to different universes. Well, yeah, but what good is that? And you know, they've made traveling through universes, it's like, woo, I'll open a portal. I mean, I want to go to the universe where Rob Burnett is a multi-billionaire so I can go borrow some money for myself. I mean, is that going to be easy to do? I don't know. And I think that's another problem. The idea of these multiverses is so far out there, and they've made it so kind of mundane. It's mundane to go to the quantum realm and interact there. It's mundane to go from universe to universe. I mean, Wanda figured out a way to do it, and it seems like all this is way too easy. I mean, it should be very different and used sparingly if you can travel from universe to universe. It's frustrating. Anthony C says, regarding the post-credit scene, well, what about them? Which one? The first one, the Council of Kangs, or the second one when they look at a Kang variant in like the 20s or something? What's it regarding? Or if you like Beverly Hills Cop, regarding, pertaining, you know. I'm telling you, I'm getting a little loopy.
Only 75 more questions to go.
C-Love says, didn't Darren Cross replicate the Pym particle? I think he kind of did. I mean, again, with this movie's sloppy writing, I guess he did. He tried, but I don't even remember why didn't it work entirely. I don't even. What's so funny? Why are you guys laughing at me? I'm being laughed at.
Just Ray being silly.
Ray's being silly. He's gonna send me a scree up. You guys go to In-N-Out Burger? This is a great soda.
We're still recording.
We are. King Tannic, our boy King Tannic, Israel is here. Yeah. Based on the trailer and editing, I would wager that 30 minutes or more was cut out. Either that or stuff was filmed only for the trailers. No, I think you're right, King Tannic. By the way, for those of you who don't know, King Tannic has his own show, The Otaku Experience, on my channel. It drops every Thursday at 2 p.m. If you're an anime fan, check out the Otaku Experience. I think you're right, King Tannic. I think these movies always run long. They finish them. They think they're going to keep that stuff, and then they cut them out at the end. It's a bummer, but it happens a lot. These movies are very iterative. They're always changing them and doing reshoots based on logic issues and things like that. But yeah. By the way, thanks for. I love that you're on my channel, but you come and support me when I'm talking to you, even though, well, either way, you know what I mean. Thanks for the support, and you better have your show on time. That's all I'm saying. Operation Spider says, I'm just tired and exhausted from the discourse. I want to know what's next for Marvel. What are the consequences of the movie on the MCU? What are the consequences of this movie on the MCU and Feige, etc.? Look, Operation Spider, I can't tell you. I'm just tired myself. And I mean, I really am tired. Like I could take a nap right now, right here. I'd fall right to sleep. I've done it before online. I'll just lean back and be like, but I'm tired too. Please explain to me What's going on? How does all of this wrap up? There's a celestial in the Indian Ocean, and no one seems to care.
There we go. There it is.
Come on. Does anyone care? Arshem the Judge, a giant humanoid figure 3 times the size of the Earth, comes to Earth to judge us. No one's mentioned him. Did everyone see him, or just people in the UK? Or just people that know Jon Snow? Hi, John. There's a look up in the sky. I mean, they were in the park. It doesn't make any sense. I want to know, like you. Well, how am I? Please tell me how to care about all these disparate elements that need to be brought together somehow through Kang variants. I don't know, man. We'll see. Mr. Purple Lightsaber. I bet your lightsaber never meant to cause you any sorrow, and it never meant to cause you any pain, did it? Because it's purple. Get it? It's time for Marvel to have continuity departments. In old Star Trek, they had a department that would reach out to real scientists to try and keep the fantasy grounded and believable. That is true. They had scientific advisors on Star Trek to try and tell them when they did stupid things, to try and bring them back into the real world. I mean, Marvel had a story department. That's another thing. They don't really have that story department anymore. I wish they would, because it would, I think, bring much needed reality down here to all of this. But yeah. Right, guys?
Yes.
I always hear you laughing at me. They're laughing at me.
No, we're not.
You're all laughing at me. Ronaldo Meza Puerto says, hello, Mr. Campea. Hello, Mr. Campea. Greetings from Honduras. Ah, welcome. Overall, I enjoyed the film. It's not my favorite of the Ant-Man franchise, but it was fun. MODOK made me laugh a couple of times. Yeah, but was he supposed to? I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad you enjoyed it. By the way, I've always wanted to go to Honduras. It's great to know we have viewers all the way down there. But yeah, again, don't apologize for what you liked. It was enjoyable. I mean, I didn't hate it. I wanted more from it. And I'm tired of these trifling movies that don't seem to have anything to do with a larger narrative. And I look, the only reason I know it's called the Multiverse Saga is because Kevin Feige stood up in front of us at CinemaCon and called it the Multiverse Saga with his baseball hat on that said Multiverse Saga. It's like, so that's all I can think about. Well, what saga is there? These things don't seem that they intertwine. And I didn't ask to be told this was the Multiverse Saga. And I think that Kevin Feige, by wearing that hat at CinemaCon, and he's been talking about it. I mean, we expect, where's the saga? We're getting a lot of multiverse. I'm waiting for the saga. I'm not seeing saga. And I need to know what the saga is. I'm being laughed at again. They're laughing at me off camera. Crazy Eddie is here. What explains the difference in Rotten Tomatoes audience score, which is 84%, and the critic score? Also, is there a movie that you love that most critics hate? Well, I mean, it's pretty simple. I think that, look, audiences want to be entertained. And if they're entertained, they like the audience scores high. Critics, they don't just want to be entertained. They want to, I think they want a little bit more. They want, I don't know, they want a story to be relevant, whether it's about politics or human nature or existence itself. They want something to have, it's got to be a little bit important. But audiences just want to be entertained. Isn't that what Maximus said? Are you not entertained? So that's why audience scores, sometimes critic scores, are a little different. Because critics are looking, critics are more academic. And so they approach things more like a college professor might. Audiences don't. Audiences are like, hey man, tell me a great story and entertain me. That's what I want. And sometimes critics are too hard on audiences. You ask me, what is a movie that I love and people hate? I love a movie called Tough Turf from 1985. It stars Robert Downey Jr. and James Spader, Iron Man and Ultron themselves. And it's kind of a 50s gang movie by way of 80s. And it is awesome. It's so good. But not. I love it. Critics probably don't. Other people look at me like I'm nuts. Tough Turf. And tough is spelled Tuff. So you know they mean business. Tough Turf. Directed by Fritz Kirsch, who directed the original Children of the Corn. Take that one to the bank. Or not. Can't get any money for it. Alejandro Palacios? Palacios. Alejandro Palacios. It's a cool name. Alejandro Palacios. How are you? Kang versus Scott reminded me of Spidey versus Goblin. Straight hands and not really using their powers. I loved it. Yeah, man, it was almost like a brawl, a knockdown, drag-out fight, which is kind of how it should be. I like that. You know what? That's something I'm all there for. Like, you got two powerful dudes with various powers, and they just choose to beat down each other. That's what it should be when it comes right down to it. And that's what made that kind of fun, because you don't see that all the time. That I liked. I thought that was very cool. I enjoyed that a lot. Jay says, Kang being defeated a lot in the comics only strengthens Kang's power set. I think it will be that if Kang comes back, he is uber strong. Well, make no mistake, Kang is coming back, and he probably will be uber strong. But again, the question is, which Kang? This Kang, a different Kang variant? I don't know. I don't even know what to say. I want to know, did anyone in the quantum realm get snapped? Are they part of it? Wouldn't they be? They're part of the universe. Or were they immune because of something else? I don't know. I want to know, though. I want to know these questions. I'll never find out the answers either. I'll just never find out. I just want to know, man. Just please tell me. Jay goes on to say, Kang defeated those ants in the end, if you really look at it, due to Kang being able to fight Scott in the end. Well, that's interesting. That could be, unless the ants had evolved to the point where they saw what was coming and happening and made certain arrangements. But yeah, I guess you could say that, perhaps. I don't want those ants to be defeated. I thought they were badass. I loved them. I loved how they evolved. I want to meet ants like that one day. I mean, maybe not. That wouldn't be so good, but, I could dream about it. Luke says, hey, John, I liked the film a bit more than you, but MODOK was an issue. And I'm still at the same point with Phase 4, even after the film. And where is the MCU going? Curious as your thoughts on that. Look, to me, where they're going is obviously this big multiversal war between the forces of good and the forces of evil. That's where they're going. I just feel it's not very focused right now. I don't think they quite know yet how they're going to get there. I feel like they should have written Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars, maybe 1 and 2 at once, and got 3 great scripts and then back the whole MCU into those scripts or something. So you have Secret Wars 1 and 2 and Kang Dynasty, and then figure out how are we going to get there. But of course they can't. They've done the opposite because they couldn't do it the other way. But we'll see how it goes. Mr. Purple Lightsaber's back. How about an internal Marvel continuity department? I would love that. Maybe there were some issues in earlier phases. Lately, they break their rules with every show and movie. If they can't keep track, how can we? We can't. We can't keep track, and I don't know how. It's frustrating. And I think it's really a big problem. Like falling asleep. Alex Von Gollum says, didn't Scott and Hope forget the multiversal orb before getting back home at the end of the movie? That is also bugging me. How can they forget that? Well, did they leave it behind? Did it destroy itself? Like, what happened with it? I don't know. I've only seen it once. I'd have to go back and see it again. I thought they did kind of leave it behind. Maybe they didn't, though. I don't know. It seems like an oversight that they would take care of that, but maybe they didn't.
Guess what, Rob?
What?
That's the last one.
No.
All done.
For real?
For real.
Wow. Well, kids, I mean, all I can say is that, first of all, I want to thank you for joining us. Is that true? Is that the end?
Yes, you think I would just just end it?
I want to say thank you to everybody that generously supports the channel via tips and super chats and the members here. Thank you so much. Great questions. It's really great when you guys ask such good questions. I mean, look, whether you like this movie or not, if it makes you think and it inspires you and you have questions, at least it engages your intellect, and that can always be a good thing, and it always is a good thing. I just, like you, I hope these Marvel movies, I dearly love them. I loved phases 1, 2, and 3. I hope they get better. I still enjoy watching them. Even though they're imperfect, I do enjoy watching them. I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for listening to me. I want to thank Taylor Gonzalez for producing this show, the technical director of the show. I want to thank Ray Ora for being a mad genius, just because he is. And I want to thank John Campea for letting me do this. And I especially want to thank the sponsors for this show, Fume and the Black Tux. Thank you all. And when you use their products, remember to put in Campea, our code, and you get, not only do you get discounts, but they know you heard about them by watching this show. And that matters. And on that note, my name is Robert Meyer Burnett. You can find me on Instagram at RMBurnett. Find me on YouTube at The Burnett Work, but that name is going to change on April 2nd. Or just find me out in the ether somewhere. And this show has come. Wow. It's the story of my life. People turning the lights off on me. Thanks for being here. Peace out.